This may have just been my best year of medical school so far. So after 5 years, I can finally say that I'm done. Sadly, today we'll be going through a review of my final year of medical school, which will be my last review of one of my years of medical school. But it's been an amazing journey and it's ended with a bang. It's been amazing, so I'm really excited to be talking to you about this. I'll tell you a bit about my year, how it went, what the good parts were, what the challenges were, what were some of the things that I absolutely loved about this year, because trust me, there were many things that I loved about my 5th year at medical school. It's been amazing and I can't wait to share some of it with you. But before we get into the video, if you don't know who I am, my name's Siobhan. I'm a 5th and final year medical student, well now pretty much done with medical school at King's College London, and I make videos about medical school, university, lifestyle and travel. So go check out my channel if you find my videos interesting. If there's something you'd enjoy, then definitely smash that subscribe button and join me for a lot more videos. So now let's start with the timeline of 5th year and the sequence of events. So 5th year is the longest year of medical school. For me, it started in June 2024 and it ended in June 2025. So it was pretty much 12 months long. Officially, no breaks in those 12 months. So it's a pretty intense year. During the year, we're split up on many different placements. So we have about, I'd say, 6 different placements throughout the year. We have a few of our standard placements, and towards the second half of the year, there's slightly unconventional placements that I'll tell you a bit more about later. So let's start off with my year. So like I said, my year started off in June 2024, right after the end of my 4th year exams, and I started off with a block called acute care. So acute care was my first block. It's acute care, so it's acute medicine, acute internal medicine, a bit of surgery as well. Mostly general surgery and following some on-calls and stuff like that. The ambulatory unit, things like this. Acute care was a good block, but I can't lie, if I talk about my personal experience, I was a bit exhausted during acute care because not having a break from 4th year, it being right after exams, the mental burnout, it's there. So you can't completely ignore it. You just have to do the best you can to get through that block. But nevertheless, it was very important because I learned some important skills or revised some important skills like AD examinations, how to deal with an acutely unwell patient. But then after acute care, luckily we had a 2-week break. I got a chance to go back home to India, took a little holiday to Sri Lanka, cooled off a little bit and came back re-energized, I'd say. Because the next block was one of the most important blocks, I'd say, for me throughout medical school. It was my GP or my general practice block. It's one of the blocks during medical school where you get the most independence and you have a lot of learning. So a lot of opportunities to learn. Primary care is such a big part of healthcare, and a lot more medical students are going to become primary care practitioners compared to what you think. At my university, almost 50% of people end up becoming GPs. GP is an important block, and I really enjoyed it because I got to learn so much. So in GP, I got a clinic of my own, so I could sit by myself and I could see some patients. That was a completely unique experience for me because I never actually got the chance to start the care of a patient and end the care of a patient myself. Of course, you have to consult with your GP while doing this, but you're allowed to lead the process. That degree of independence comes with a degree of responsibility as well, and that helps you gain a sense of confidence that's very important for you to carry through the rest of your final year and obviously into becoming a doctor as well. I had a great experience because I got to get a bit ingrained into the practice as well, got to know some of the people around there, had a good sort of rapport with my supervisor. I'd say the only disadvantage of GP placement is you're isolated from other medical students because for 8 weeks you don't see any other medical students because you're the only medical student at your practice. For some people, they have another student with them, but mostly it's quite isolated. My next block, now let me tell you, my next block was one that I was quite worried about. I was quite apprehensive because for my next block I had to move all the way from London, which was my home, my friends and everyone are there, to Ashford, which is a city like 2 hours outside of London, and I had to actually move there and live there. So I would live there throughout the week, and I was afraid of this because I didn't want to leave my comfort zone. But it actually turned out to be one of the best blocks of medical school, I can't lie. So I moved out in October for my next block, and the title of this block was long-term conditions, and that basically involved respiratory medicine, neurology, endocrinology, palliative care, many inpatient medical specialties, basically some renal medicine as well. So firstly, if we tackle the academic or the medical side of this block, it was really interesting because I find medical specialties super interesting. The medical science behind all of this, the clinical knowledge that you need, that you gain, and then you can put pieces together and it almost works like a puzzle, especially with things like neurology. I had a great time on this block and I learned a lot. If I said I learned a lot in GP, in long-term conditions, my clinical knowledge went from here to here. And also being locked away in this separate city that was not London with not that much to do was actually super nice. It was sort of a mental cleanse because in the busy city of London, sometimes you get engulfed in all the things that you have to do or that you can do and all the stuff around you. When you move away to a quiet place, you're living right next to the hospital, you don't have to commute, life becomes really easy and you can really focus on what you need to. And I was lucky enough that I had some really nice flatmates there as well in my hospital accommodation and some really nice people with me on the block. So I really enjoyed everyone's company and we would go out here and there, study together, things like that. So it was great because what was coming next, it required that sort of peer support. So after long-term conditions, the next part of my final year of medical school was my final exams. And that final exam is known as the UKMLA. After long-term conditions, I had a Christmas break and some time by myself at home just to study and prepare for my exams. This was just an absolute grind time for me. I was stuck to my laptop for weeks. I didn't see any place but my desk and the library. But to be honest, again, like I said in the previous two experiences that I had in my final year, I learned so much during this time because I really got to consolidate my knowledge, shove those important facts, important points into my brain. I knew so much more than I thought I did by the end of all of this because it was just about sort of cementing that information in, filling in those little gaps and then practicing again and again and again and again. Spent a lot of time on PassMed, QuestMed, question banks, completed like thousands of questions and then obviously practiced with other friends in the library for our practical exam or our OSCE because we had two exams in final year or two final exams in final year. We had another exam that I'll tell you a bit more about later. As part of the UKMLA, we had two things. We had the AKT, which is our written exam, and we had the CPSA, which is our practical exam. Both were tough and both required sort of unique preparation. It was really tough balancing the two of them, but I think it all went well in the end. My advice to you if you're approaching your final year is to start early and make use of any free time you have. Get some company for your study experience. Maybe study for the written exam mostly on your own, or sit next to a friend while you're both doing your own work, and then study for your practical exam obviously with friends, with other people. Because the more you speak out loud, the more you interact, you practice the things you're meant to practice, the more confidence you gain and the more capable you become for your OSCEs. Those months of December and January were the absolute grind. But the exams all went well in the end. I sat my exams towards the end of January and it was a really sort of satisfying experience to sit those exams. They were very challenging, but it was nice to walk out knowing that I've worked hard for these exams and that I've hopefully done well. After that period of exams, the next important step was my transition to foundation year placement. You'd think after exams you get a break, but if you're in your final year of medical school, my friend, there are no breaks. Literally a couple of days after your final exams finish, you start a new placement. So this new placement is called transition to foundation year. And now these are the unconventional placements I'm talking about because they're not themed around a particular specialty or anything like that. This one is about transitioning to the role of a foundation year 1 doctor or first year doctor. So you're basically assigned to one doctor, one first year doctor for 4 weeks in medicine and 4 weeks in surgery, and you just tail them, just shadow them, just do things with them to really get a sense of what you need to do when you take up the job. Again, I mean, you can have varied experiences with this, but I think the first 4 weeks of my placement were more sort of intense, and I feel like, again, I learned quite a bit. These were my weeks in medicine. My F1, he really took the opportunity to teach me a lot of different things, which was really good, like whether it was skills as a foundation your doctor or knowledge that you need to have as a foundation your doctor, all of that. So I got to see quite a bit, do quite a bit. It was overall a good experience. Again, whenever you start placement after exams, trust me, it's very mentally exhausting to have to get up at 6 a.m. and go to placement after just working so hard for a few months. But again, that is the life you signed up for, unfortunately. You got to do the best you can. Then the surgical placement after that was good, but the thing is, the foundation, your doctors, they understand that you've had a hard few months. You're reaching the end of medical school, so they support you in sort of taking it easy, coming to placement, doing what you need to do, but not pushing yourself more than you need to, if you know what I mean. That was a good placement overall, and during that placement were two very important days. One was when I got my results for my final medical exams, so my UK MLA, and thankfully I passed those, and I did as well as I wanted to do in those, so that was a huge relief. A few weeks after that, I got my allocations for where I was going to be working, and I'm going to talk to you about that process a bit later. After this transition to foundation year placement, surely you're done, right? Absolutely not. The next thing was the career development placement. So now this was interesting because this is a placement you can sort out for yourself, and it can be anywhere in the UK. It can be with a GP, it can be with a doctor in a specialty that you like, it can be with a different hospital that's not associated with your university, as long as it's in the UK and you have someone to supervise you. So I actually chose to do this placement in ophthalmology, to experiment with that, to see whether it's something I'd be interested in, because it looked like an appealing specialty. I was up in the air between a few different specialties, but I chose to go with ophthalmology. I spent 3 weeks in ophthalmology in a hospital away from my university. And it was really good because I got great insight into ophthalmology. So ophthalmology is not something they cover in great detail in medical school. So actually getting that experience was super interesting, and I saw loads and loads of surgeries, loads of clinics, whether it was glaucoma, medical retina, whether it was cornea and external. I mean, I saw everything there is to see in ophthalmology. Obviously, I didn't understand everything because specialties can get quite complicated once you go into them, but I got the best exposure that I could. Then I got a bit of a break for a week, went on a bit of a holiday, went to Italy. That was nice. That was a nice break during 5th year. And then went all the way across the world for the next placement, the most exciting placement of not only 5th year, of medical school entirely. And that was my elective placement. Now, elective placement is one of the things you look forward to more than anything in medical school. It is what you're waiting for, what you're excited for, and I was super excited. So I split up my placement into 2 different locations. I did half of my elective placement in India, in the city of Bangalore, in cardiology. I actually chose that because that was a great balance between me actually experimenting again and experiencing a specialty that I want to experience in a different country, which is India, while also being able to spend some time with my dad, who was in Bangalore at the time. So those were a great 3 weeks. And then after that, I went all the way to Vietnam for the next 3 weeks of my elective placement, and this was unbelievable. Now, India is my home country, I'm used to it. It was lovely to get a bit of a change from the UK and to spend some time in India, but Vietnam was an amazing experience. I had never been to this country before, and to say that it was a pleasant surprise would be an absolute understatement. I had the time of my life. I got to experience some great placements in radiology and oncology, which was amazing, in a completely different environment to what I'm used to in the UK. It was a very different setting, and at the same time got to experience culture, got to experience the beautiful country of Vietnam, got to travel around, made some great new friends. I did this placement with a program called Work the World, so there were a lot of other students and we were all staying in the same house. It was a fantastic experience, and I could not think of a better way to end this 5-year journey in medical school. If you're planning your elective placement, I'd highly recommend Work the World. I'd recommend Vietnam, but I just recommend going into it with an absolute open mind, planning something that you're excited about and making the most of that experience, because trust me, you're not going to get the chance to do something like this again. Now, a few things that I missed throughout the year that are peppered into these various different placements. You have your application for your foundation year jobs during your final year, which is a very important part of final year. That started for me during my GP placement, so that was around September, October time. It's when you have to complete your application, submit all your preferences. So that means preferencing the various regions or deaneries around the UK. That's a stressful time, figuring out what is most important to you, what you want to rank on the top, what you want to rank second. You have to be strategic about it. So see, I picked London as my top choice because I came from India to London. My entire support network is set up in London, so I really wanted to be in London, but it's a very, very competitive deanery, and now that everything's random and you have no control over it, your test results, nothing matters. It's all a matter of chance. So I'd say if you're not dead set on something super competitive, go for something reasonable. Say for example you wanted London, go for something next to London or around London instead of London itself, because at least then you can guarantee that you'll get what you want. Otherwise, if you take the gamble with London, there's like a 1 in 3 chance that you get what you want. But if you put London and you didn't get it, then the chances are you're going to get something really bad in the sense from your perspective that you didn't want to get. But yeah, that's what happened with me. I ended up somewhere that was definitely not in my top 2 or 3 choices. Of course, now I'm in a good place with it. I'm making the best of this situation, and I'm looking forward to what lies ahead. But yeah, of course, be strategic with your choices. And then the other thing is one more exam in addition to the UK MLA that you have to give, and that's the PSA, or the Prescribing Safety Assessment. Now, the PSA is an exam that everyone has to give during their final year of medical school. Depending on your medical school, you'll give it at different times. I gave it in March, so that was between my transition to foundation year placement and my career development placement. It's a tough exam, but if you prepare well for it, it's not a hard exam to pass or to do well in. It's tough to get the hang of, but once you get the hang of it and you do some practice, it's not hard to do well on it. Prescribing is a very important skill to have as a junior doctor, so trust me, your university would have given you ample practice, and with some practice of your own, you'll be in a good position to both pass this exam and be a confident prescriber. Overall, if I had to sum it up, 5th year was one of the best experiences of medical school. Overall, one of the best years, because it not only involved a high degree of productivity and a lot of learning when it came to some really, really high quality placements, as well as my exam time, which was again a lot of learning. It was also a time where I really got to make the most of this experience of being at medical school, whether it was moving out from London and being in that city in the suburbs of the UK, being around other medical students close to the hospital, really maximizing my learning but having a great time with the people around me at the same time. And then there was also my elective placement, which was absolutely amazing. So make the most of the opportunities you get in 5th year, because you get a lot of great opportunities, and make sure you finish off your medical school experience with a bang, like I said, because now you're becoming a doctor, life's getting serious, so enjoy the last stint of freedom you have left, whatever amount of freedom you get in your 5th year, of course. Yeah, that is my 5th year of medical school wrapped up. 5th year of medical school at King's College London. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was insightful into what one's final year of medical school or 5th year of medical school looks like. If you found it interesting, if you found it helpful, if you enjoyed listening to me, then definitely consider dropping a like down below on this video. Leave any comments with any questions, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button to join me for a lot more videos. And with that, I'll see you in the next one.